beer lovers, another episode of Your Brain on Hops, and this is part 2 in our Buffalo in a Glass series, where each one of us are stopping at a Buffalo brewery, kind of getting the lay of the land, checking it out, and grabbing some of their delicious, delicious beer for this podcast. So last episode we had 4 breweries. This episode we have 4 brand new breweries, and it's actually a lot more beers per head this time. I think we're averaging, 2.5 beers per brewery?
Yeah.
And this one is a lot more, I think. We each took one brewery, and a couple of us may have come back with more than we probably needed to, but it was so good that we just couldn't make up our minds, and we decided, hey, let's sample everything.
This has been a very fun idea.
It has. Unfortunately, for this episode, we decided we actually needed to order food and take a break somewhere in between because we actually might have too much.
We got to drive home.
Yes.
Some of you have to drive home.
Yes, okay. Yeah. 3 of us.
Live from Chris's basement.
An overnight episode.
That's the green cap episode.
Yes.
We'll be passed out on the floor.
So for this episode, we have Buffalo Brewing Company. We have New York Beer Project. We have Old First Ward. And Pressure Drop. So that's what you have to look forward to coming up over the next hour or so. Unless we just really got on a roll, then maybe 2 hours.
And if you haven't, at this point, if you have not heard the first part or our last episode, please go and check it out because there's 4 other breweries that were absolutely fantastic and they did some excellent work and were great to talk about. So I recommend that you go see that episode and then come to this episode and listen to this one because Buffalo Beer Week is coming up next week. And everyone's got something coming out, it seems. So,
also a thanks to those couple breweries that we talked about them on our show. I know we were retweeted and shared by a couple of them, and that was awesome. So thank you to those guys.
Absolutely.
And girls. Sorry.
So first up, we have Buffalo Brewing Company. A few beers from them. I stopped in, talked to John, the owner, brewer. So he said, janitor, landscaper, maintenance man, pretty much all the above, because it's his baby. He started up Buffalo Brewing Company.
He just does everything. Is that what it is?
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah, it's
one-man band.
It's not easy starting up a brewery.
No, it is not.
Very true. Or else we'd all have one.
True. So grab 3 beers from Buffalo Brewing Company. First one that we're drinking now is the 1842 Vienna Lager. And John said this is actually the best-selling beer that they have, which is kind of interesting because it's a lager, and most places they feature ales mostly, and an ale is the most popular one. So
lagers are king.
Dan's very happy as a lager man himself. So this one, 5.5% ABV. It's kind of a clean, malty lager taste. Actually, John referred to it as kind of a year-round Oktoberfest, which I definitely get from this beer.
Definitely. It's smooth. It's tasty. I agree completely with that strong malt character. It's a very enjoyable beer.
And, yeah, it definitely finishes really clean. Makes you just want to go back for another sip.
Yeah, we were actually drinking this we've been drinking it for a while. We didn't just pop it open. And, very easy going drinking beer, respectable ABV. It's a good way to start off instead of starting off with a 9% or something like that.
I have to say, though, I also love the color of it.
It's what is it? It's a leaning red, but it's not red. Amber hue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Where do you know where they're located? I've heard of them. I've seen them at beer festivals, but I've actually never been there.
Yeah, it's really near. I don't know if it's technically in the Larkinville area or near the Larkinville area, but it's near. The actual address is on Myrtle Avenue, 314 Myrtle Avenue, Buffalo. It's Myrtle is right next to Seneca Street, so that Seneca runs right through Larkin, that area. And yeah, he's got a shop right on the corner where the brewery is. They just put in a beer garden actually, which is pretty nice. Perfect time for it, good weather. So yeah, if you're, I recommend going to Buffalo to check it out. Also, if you get 3 crowlers, they have, frankly, adorable crowler holder.
I love the crowler koozie. It is a fantastic device. I first discovered it.
It's not really a koozie.
Well, not a koozie.
Crowler rack.
I like that. Crowler rack, a holder. So think of the classic plastic 4-pack holder, but this is for large crowlers, and it holds 3 perfectly in a row. Nice, sturdy handle. I was in Hawaii, and I actually was able to transport 3 crowlers back to the mainland in that device, and I still have mine for when I go get crowlers at other breweries because it holds them perfectly.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea. Reuse it.
Yeah.
So
I keep the 4-pack ones, just in case I want to bring 4 beers somewhere, and that's all I want. I just snap a couple cans on it.
Reduce, reuse, recycle, people.
Yeah, actually that thing says it's made out of 96% recycled content.
Awesome.
So one of the things that makes me happy is the fact that there is a place in Buffalo. Alex and Chris said it. I'm a lager man, and especially an Oktoberfest man. My favorite beer of all time is probably Jack's Abbey Copper Legend, and the fact that there's an all year round beer like this, and we talked about on our last episode of something different and that's out there, and the flagship isn't their IPA or something like that. That makes me super happy deep down. I like the fact that there's just a well-rounded beer that is loved by everybody.
definitely, and we started talking about the difference, that it's interesting that they make a lot of lagers, and lagers are popular for them as well. But also, when I commented on that, he paused and said, "Well, Buffalo's a lager city." Yeah, that's definitely displayed at Buffalo Brewing Company.
I will go there and I will drink heartily and most likely get kicked out.
So we moved on to the second of the beers from Buffalo Brewing, and it's 1825 TDH IPA. This one clocks in at 5%.
1825 triple dry hopped?
Yeah. Yep.
Which you can immediately tell as soon as I think Alex and I were both noticing. When you just put your nose in there just for a second, it hits you right in the face.
Oh yeah.
To put it in perspective, as soon as we cracked open this can, a single fruit fly just started buzzing around. Like, mine!
So we have a 5th on the podcast tonight.
Yep.
Meet Steve.
Before we get too deep into the beer, I wanted to point out, because I remember seeing on the menu when I went there myself with my wife, that each one of the numbers on the beer corresponds to a significant year in Buffalo. So, for example, the triple dry hop we're having right now is 1817, and that was the year that construction began on the Erie Canal. So I like this place because it's got history to it.
I was going to say,
Go history
forever the
nerds.
history buffed him.
Heck yeah. Brewery's going to respect that. I love it.
Definitely. What was 1842 in Buffalo?
1842 was the year, it's in small type, the year the dark grain elevator was invented and built. Didn't know that.
What's in your
I
last
didn't know
one?
much of
Oh,
this.
no, we'll get back to that when we get to the next crowler. There better be a year on that.
There is.
1901.
That's kind of an ominous year in Buffalo. 1901.
Yeah. Something happened that wasn't pleasant to a certain someone. But it
Yeah.
helped one person.
That's true.
Teddy, he's happy. Well, sad yet happy.
I can say happy, but it was
Bittersweet.
beneficial for Teddy.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Which people always ask me why, or when I was in Maryland, like, what makes Buffalo famous? Like, what's the big deal, aside from losing 4 Super Bowls, which was always a dagger to the heart every time. Sorry, everyone listening. But I always said, well, we have the McKinley Mall, which is named after a president. And they're like, oh yeah, why that president though? I said, because he was shot there. You killed the president? I didn't, but...
You know what makes me sad is you think we could have done better than a mall.
Yeah.
Well, there's
probably a
the circle, the
monument
monument, McKinley
Okay.
or McKinley
Yeah.
Square
It's got a
Circle.
little statue,
Forgot what it's
I'm
called.
sure.
But what's the first thing when you hear McKinley in
You think of
Buffalo?
the mall.
You think of the mall.
The somewhat lousy mall outside Blaisdell.
Oh, that's starting to
in
fall
Blaisdell.
apart. But I was actually there last week. My favorite sword shop is there. I'm still happy.
That was there last night.
Well then.
Back to the beer.
Yes.
Back to the beer. Yes, this triple dry hopped.
Very easy to drink. I think I could do definitely a couple of these. And the aroma makes it, like we said before, it makes it really pleasant to keep putting up to my face.
Yeah, at 5%, it's really flirting with the
Is that
line
all
of
it is?
sessionability there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
What's the
Just about session.
5.
Ooh.
Okay. This one I'm pretty sure I had when I was there, which I remembered liking it.
Yeah, great hop profile on the nose, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And same thing with the last one. Very clean taste to it.
Yeah.
certain breweries have that. I guess everything has a certain cleanliness or crispness to it. Uinta is another one that comes to mind, where all their beers have that pretty clean taste and finish.
Well, everybody just, we just love just dirty beer. So we go out to breweries, They just want chunks floating from the lines and,
Shout out to Tom. That's his hangover cure.
All the yeasty beasties that come floating in the glass.
Yeasty beasties.
We'll have some
That's a technical
yeasties in one of the beers that I brought. In a very good way.
Listen, so to the listeners that this episode, some of us were able to pick up our beers beforehand. So and today, like the one I got to go to Hold First Ward. I am super happy right now because I had a great time there, and that was probably about 2 hours before we started recording.
Dan pre-gamed this episode.
Oh, I totally
Your Brain on
did.
Ice.
And I think I forgot what episode we did, but I just remember the last episode, and I came in after just a fantastic time at another brewery, and I'm like, yeah, I should not be on mic. And I got very, very quiet for one half of the episode.
This series is working out well for you because you get out of work, 4:30?
Yeah,
and then you spend about 2 hours at a brewery.
And then come record
And then I come record, and I get to talk about that brewery.
Yeah.
And it's fantastic. I love Buffalo right now.
I also like
I get to explore.
the slogan of Buffalo Brewing, which is good neighbors, great beer, which is one thing I always mentioned when another thing people ask about Buffalo. I'm like, we're the city of good neighbors.
We have had some fantastic slogans
Yes.
of good vibes.
Yeah, they really emphasize the Buffalo roots. I mean, even the comment about Buffalo's a lager city. He's Buffalo, obviously, and yeah, they're really into the whole idea of neighborhood and coming to hang out and that good aspect of Buffalo, really.
It's in a nice little area too. Like I had never driven out there myself. There's a nice little business park that's right there with some tall building. I don't know what it is, but and then we just drove out there past this nice little side street. Like, where are we? And then it says like brewery or what is it, craft beer being served or some sign like on the corner that points to.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay. It reminded me the way it's set up in like a garage type setting, almost what Community started out as. And that little garage type of idea, to a smaller extent, but yeah, I liked it.
I think that's what Buffalo is becoming too. Is not. I mean, we've always been the city of good neighbors, but everyone now has their own neighborhood brewery because they're just popping up everywhere.
Yeah.
Like you have New York Beer Project up in Lockport. You have
42 North for us.
East Aurora,
right,
yeah.
42 North in East Aurora. You have Rusty Nickel in West Seneca.
yeah.
Like you have all these breweries popping up, and like everyone has their neighborhood brewery now.
And that's what it used to be before Prohibition.
Right.
Not to go history on everybody again, but
Prohibition.
yeah, right.
God bless bathtub gin.
But that was a big thing. Was there wasn't quite like Anheuser-Busch and them. They were they would come around eventually, and they were around. But every neighborhood before then had their own little local place they could go get beer that was made there. And now I think we're seeing a rebirth of that in our city, among other places around the country.
Definitely. Actually, that reminded me, at the brewery, they had a case set up with a bunch of Iroquois brewing memorabilia and Iroquois brewing stuff. So even that, I mean, current local neighborhood brewery in Buffalo, shout out to an old Buffalo brewery that was around back in the day.
Good stuff.
So you want to crack this next one?
Yeah.
I think it's about time.
Crack it.
And it's
Release the Kraken.
We're not drinking that tonight.
yeah. Let's never drink that.
No bad experiences. I can't.
Same.
I think we all have a bottle of alcohol that just makes us go, oh, anything but.
I have two.
Bailey's used to do it.
Ooh,
to
really?
me. Yeah.
I might
Well,
actually
I
have
had a night of a lot of Bailey's.
You'd be proud of me, Tim. My first ever drink in life was Irish whiskey.
this. No, cheers. Launch it. Oh, we haven't.
L'chaim.
So what do we have here, Chris?
I'm just kidding. Killing the Irish vibe.
You're Irish. I'm Jewish.
I know. It
What?
works.
I can't say cheers?
You can. Sláinte. Salud. Nasrovi.
Kampai? What else you got?
I'm running out.
Actually, I have nothing.
Yeah. Prost.
How did we miss that?
Forget the
I feel so ashamed.
Try and block the Germans out of history.
With
although
all
I'm
of the
mostly
German
German, so-
things that we go to, we missed that one.
Walt.
We need Tom here. He would
Yeah,
remember.
Tom would have got that one.
Yeah. So this is the 1901 IPA, 6% ABV. So still nothing crazy, but it is the strongest one of the three so far.
It's got a unique aftertaste to it. I'm getting.
You get a lot of, like, a caramely malt taste.
I don't know. This IPA is it's a bigger malt character to it, and a much bigger bitterness on the end.
Agreed.
And I think the triple dry hopping in the other one, I mean, just amplified the aroma. And it's probably because of that I'm maybe not getting as much aroma on this one, or it seems like I'm not getting as much.
It's a little bit there, but I'm
spoiled.
getting a lot of the malt characteristics. And it actually kind of reminds me of just how IPA started. It's...
Yeah.
You know, we weren't always this big hop forward culture where now we've taken everything, either we've over hopped it, triple dry hopped it. No offense, because the last one was delicious.
120 minutes.
100, yes, and 120 minute is extremely malty. It's the hops are there, and you pick it up on the back note. For this one, I do get a little more caramel sweetness to it, but overall it's still good.
I'm getting like a toasted cracker at the end.
Yeah, I can see that.
Listen to us as we slurp and smack our beers.
It's definitely one that's made us think a lot more.
That's a good point.
Yeah,
the first two were kind of more straightforward with what they're going for. This one, there's
a complexity to it.
yeah.
We talked about this on our last episode. We forget the beers we started with.
It's true.
Like, think about the things that introduced you to, if you love hoppy beers, where you go in craft beer.
Yeah.
Also, all four of us alone have tasted over thousands of beers, number-wise. Going back is one of the hardest things to do, and remembering, man, what was the first thing that I truly enjoyed?
Hard for you.
No,
I have a detailed record on that.
Yes, but I can still remember my first beer. And
That's
it's actually
true.
the beers that I don't... It's one of the styles that I'm not a big fan of now, which is odd to me. And so it's... But trying to remember when you start seeing all these things that are extraordinarily new and people are coming out with something bigger or better or trying to outdo something else... And then you go and you're trying to remember, man, why do I like this? It's because you liked that. And that set you on a path.
Yeah.
So this kind of takes me back to the first IPA. I mean, the first true IPA I remember having was probably back in college. And it was one of the Magic Hat number 9.
Yeah.
I remember my first sip of that beer. Wasn't no blue light. Blew my taste buds out of the water.
Wasn't Blue Moon either.
No.
I think one of the first things I remember, like, that was a big thing for the craft beer world was Enjoy By. Like, because that was a new concept. Enjoy this because we want you to taste it fresh. Like, it was new at that time when they first and then they started coming out with it more and more frequently, and like it was everywhere then. But I remember that being a huge thing when it first came out, and everyone was looking for it.
Yeah.
I think the first IPAs I really loved were 60 Minute from Dogfish. Because it was widely around. You can just go to any store and it's there. And we picked... Someone said, you like more bitter stuff? And I said, well, Magic Hat number 9 was another one that I was growing used to. And I said, well, yeah, I'll try anything else new. Because I had tried other IPAs I didn't like. And they have, I think the Alimony Ale by Buffalo Bill Brewing somewhere out, wherever that is, ironically not in Buffalo, that I gave like a 2 out of 5 rating for. And then I had 60 Minute and I gave it like a 4.5 out of 5, which I wouldn't anymore because I've had better beers since. But at the time, I was like, wow, this is awesome.
Yeah,
Chris,
that's
do
a
you
really good
remember
point.
your first IPA?
My first
First
IPA?
enjoyed IPA or first
Enjoyed,
IPA?
I'll give you that.
I do not. I let the data do my talking for me. So I can look it up, but
Who's got time for that?
I don't think I remember my. It was probably a Southern Tier IPA. Was mine,
Yeah.
but I know I've told my first bitter beer story on this podcast a couple of times. Sarah and
I was drinking sours before sours were popular.
Oh, he did it before it was cool. Here it comes.
yeah.
You hipsters.
I was going to say, here comes the hipster.
I did it before you. I'm so cool.
Well, that's kind
I'm
of
gonna
neat.
smoke my
These
cigarette.
Oh, please shave the beard just down to a mustache.
I'm gonna twirl it into a handlebar.
Borrow my
I'm gonna start,
brim glasses.
yes, I'm gonna start wearing black, thin-rimmed glasses and beanie caps.
By the way, I have a photo of that. So
Hipster day.
It's sad because it's true, and it is true.
How have I never seen this?
listeners,
out there.
keep an eye on our social media. It might make an appearance some Throwback Thursday.
Yeah, I'll accept that. I'll take that hit.
Nice. It was a good photo.
Chris, guess what? It is Thursday today. When we were
Dun,
recording.
dun, dun.
So there we go.
The sad reason
Awesome.
is I don't actually wear glasses, and yet I had a pair of glasses.
Well, that is part of the hipster playbook.
It was.
It's not cold out, but I'm wearing it.
I own glasses because
It's 98 degrees out. And
There's
I
a
have
I need
been-
my
story.
toque.
There's a story
So
behind
one
it,
of
but I won't
the-
get into it on mic.
So one of the things about talking this reminiscing, that's kind of cool. Is so back when we were turning of drinking age and tasting these craft beers, there really wasn't. There were maybe like 5 at the most craft breweries in Buffalo. So say like 10 years ago.
Sam
And-
Adams.
and now-
Red
so-
Cat,
Buffalo.
So when we're
Buffalo,
talking
yeah.
about
So you're looking what? Pearl Street,
Southern
Flying
Tier.
Bison.
Flying Bosom.
yeah, so when we're talking about
Considered
these,
Southern Tier.
everything is a
Buffalo-
non-Buffalo brewery,
Buffalo.
and really, like
Brew pub.
now,
Brew pub.
it's a completely different story. So when we were getting into craft beer, people 10 years ago, you did kind of have to go to like a Dogfish at 60 Minute because there wasn't too much local. Now, anyone getting into craft beer nowadays, they're going to have
Sky's
a
the limit.
plethora
Yeah,
of local breweries. To
You know,
choose
I
from.
like that
I
word.
also think that people getting into craft beer today are probably getting into it because their buddies are going to a local brewery, and that's where they're getting their first tastes.
But do you ever think about it, like, back when we were in college? Think about the things that we drank. You were going to a party, what was available, and then you had, or maybe
Jungle juice.
It's Jungle Juice. For me, like, the people I hung out with, that Magic Hat number 9 was probably Aviator Red from Flying By, Keep It Local. And I remember it was this bitter, new experience. And then I remember the first thing that kind of brought it back and tasting it was the Sam Adams. Sam Adams was readily available. That was the first thing that started to introduce different flavors. And I'm not talking about Boston Lager, cherry wheat. Like, okay,
You had to bring that up, didn't you?
don't worry, not this time. But I'm trying to think what.
I do
cherry
remember a
wheat,
lot of girls
but-
drinking that beer.
But even them,
down.
they weren't really big. If you remember, they weren't big and hop forward. And then all of a sudden, when they realized the hop craze was starting to rise, Sam Adams had to get on board because they had stuck to maltier, sweeter beers.
And they didn't for quite some time.
And
Like
the first-
the hop craze was in full effect, and then they finally came out with Rebel.
Rebel.
Yeah.
But you want to know something that they did, and I wish I could have found this pack more than once. I only found it once in a Wegmans. Southern Tier did something that, for the first time, I hadn't seen anybody do, and now I'm seeing it from other craft brewers.
Gentlemen, my glass is dry. Let's crack the next one and continue on with that thought.
I will. Samuel Adams had done a box o' hops. Actually, it was actually entitled, which had a beer in it called Latitude 48. And the cool thing about that box was, I think it was a 12-pack, and you only got 2 of each beer because there was 6 different beers in this pack, but each bottle was numbered 1 through 6, 6 being Latitude 48. From 1 through 5, it actually allowed you to taste every single hops, which I think actually was on the Latitude 48 growing-wise, that went into making this beer. But what it allowed you to experience was a hop kicker characteristic from each one, and just a beer alone, that went into making this culmination IPA. And so you got to actually taste the nuances of each hop character and kind of pick out something that you really liked about it. And so that's kind of what really kind of took, for me, like, actually kind of like, oh, wow, this is what really can, like, a hop can really truly do when it's done well. So I kind of, when it came to homebrew, I was like, I want to try some new things.
Well, that's a great, especially since typically you could only get that experience with home brewing when you're choosing to do stuff like that and then compare it next to each other. So the fact that Sam Adams did it in this like just mass release consumer box, and anyone could really do that and check out the different hops, that is pretty neat.
Yeah. And then after that, it led to I think it was the Rebel IPA.
Yeah, actually, it reminded me when we were talking about that is Whitewater IPA came before Rebel too.
Yeah, that was another one.
I remember I was traveling, and I think it was in Yonkers, and there was a beer tasting at my hotel, and I was like, okay, I'll go down for that. And
oh no, no beer, please.
It was all Sam Adams, and they had a whole bunch of different Sam Adams, and all of a sudden I was just like, do you have any IPAs? And she was like, oh yeah, this one, Whitewater. I was like, Whitewater? Never heard of that from Sam Adams before, but it was actually really good.
So going back to not remembering, that was one of the first IPAs I checked into on the Untapped app. April 12th, 2012.
Wow.
Whitewater. I gave it a 5 at the time.
Wow.
And I said an excellent IPA and white ale mix, which is
All right,
just some
Chris.
slight bitterness. So,
All right, Chris, I put you on the spot. Do you take back your rating?
yes.
How can you take that back now, though?
I do quite
Having
enjoy
the
it.
beers
Well,
you've
it's
had, do you take
You would
it
have to
back
have
of
it
what-
now to be able to take it back.
no, it's like what Tim was saying with 60 Minute. He gave it a 4.5 at the time. He wouldn't give it that now.
No.
Same thing. I do enjoy you saying.
You gave it it at the time, but now that you've had it years later, you've gone back on your rating. You have not had Whitewater IPA.
Ooh.
I remember Whitewater IPA.
His beer memory? Are you questioning his palate history?
Yeah, it's like the.
He has to go back in his phone to find out beers. Yes, I am.
It's like
It's legit. It's kind of like if you look at old.
I'm with him.
It's like if you look at old pictures or watch old like family videos, and like someone like my grandfather passed away when I was 3. Not to get sad in this show, but my mom asked me, "Do you remember him?" And I'm like, but the images in my head are all of the videos that I've seen since then.
And part of the reason is the fact that, it's a beer that I enjoyed, so I can remember. But you can remember experiences that you enjoy more than just average experiences. You can remember a specific thing that you enjoyed doing in high school, but you're not gonna. If I said like April 10th, 2002, what was going on, and it was just an average day, you're not gonna remember that average day. But if that was a day that like a big thing happened, you're gonna remember that big thing. So I enjoyed that beer, which is why I can remember it more.
I can still remember my favorite beer moment ever, and it was with one of the cheapest beers I've ever bought, and I love that memory that I have. And that will beat out any beer moment that I have had since.
Tell us more.
No, we're going on to the next beer because we're going back to local.
Well, I was thinking, just to bounce one more thing off Chris's
No.
memory, is I think a lot of it on Untappd maybe comes from your description of the beer too can stand out. Because I have a friend, you might even call him a relative, that puts little things in there like very pineapple-y. I'm like, well, that doesn't really tell me a lot to remember. Or very lagery. I'm looking at some of his reviews right now.
Lager?
Yes. The lager was very lagery.
Lager.
Yes.
Lager is very lagery.
Yes. But if you have a good in-depth description and you remember it, or if the location is checked in, you might remember where you were, what event just happened, what you wanted at the time. Like it was summer, I wanted something light, something sessionable, or it was deep into Buffalo winter. I needed that barley wine. I needed that nice stout.
I had one 20-minute during the storm.
The storm.
It was a bad storm. The snow was piled up past the windows. I opened the window. I used the snow pile as a cooler.
Was that the snowpocalypse that I had to show my students PowerPoints of because they didn't believe me that there was 8.5 feet of snow in my parents' yard?
Yes, and I put bottles of 120 because I was running out of beer, but I was using my aged beer shelf. And Dogfish had tweeted back, "That's fantastic."
So we are drinking a beer as well.
Yes.
We should talk about that.
We should.
Yes.
Back to task.
So Old First Ward, Dan, you had quite the experience.
A fantastic experience. Got to go to Old First Ward right out of work. Drove down there to pick up the beer for tonight.
Gene McCarthy's.
Yes, Gene McCarthy's. I've always wondered, actually, about that, because I always call it Old First Ward, but I've always wondered if it's a difference maker between Old First Ward as the brewery, then Gene McCarthy's as the restaurant.
Yep.
But I just kind of call it as a whole Old First Ward, which might have really nothing to do with where I'm at. But anyway, got to talk to the head brewer, Brian Crickmeyer. Really cool guy. Open, honest, really interesting. I'm hoping that he said he was willing.
Is it the Crikrat?
Well,
It's
no,
spelled
it's
Kirk.
spelled different. Kirkmeyer. Sorry, Kirkmeyer.
Oh, Kirkmeyer.
Kirkmeyer.
I was like, ooh.
But actually, the one.
Sorry, Brian.
So the funny thing is, though, he did brew this. But now when you said that, I'm actually looking at the spelling. The only difference literally is, I think, a C and a K from the beginning. So it may actually be. I don't know. I'm not.
I hope he's listening.
I hope he is.
And then he's like,
and he
shaking his head.
yes, you got it! You got it!
that, or I'm completely wrong. It's like he doesn't get it at all.
How dare that man talk about my beers?
And in that case, sorry.
The one thing I liked when I went there is happened to go, my brother-in-law and I, Corey, went on a Monday night, and it was their trivia night, which was by accident. I didn't know
Tuesdays
that.
now, Tim.
Oh, is it? Maybe it was
There's
a
some trivia
Tuesday.
for
I'm
you.
forgetting. Whoops. My bad. Either way.
You
It
would
was-
be a good person to bring to trivia.
Would I?
Don't take Chris. He doesn't listen to your answers.
There was one
It was a
answer
fun time.
out of 40 that Dan got right, and I didn't write it down.
The what?
Because after he said it, he laughed, and I thought he was joking. It was about R&B in the 90s, I think.
Oh. See, we missed the whole first round, so our score wasn't that competitive, but we got quite a few right, and while enjoying beer and wings, they had very good wings there.
They do, yeah. I
Always
agree.
a plus. in
I
a
like their
brewery.
beef on whack.
See, that I haven't had. I'll have to go. Now I got to go back. Shucks.
I'll go there for
Drink.
lunch
I love
sometimes, and the bar food, like beef on whack wings, that's great during lunchtime. And definitely good. They really nailed the buffalo food
Oh, on
part
your
of
lunch.
it.
You can just run over there on your lunch, can you?
Pretty-
I can
yes.
Don't
leave
you love
it.
how he always just like throws
Yeah,
that little
yeah.
thing in there and just jams you right in the
I'm
side?
so cute. I'm Chris.
Yeah, and the new what's it called
Nailed it.
is opening up near me too, and this one's opening there
Huff-
too.
Hofbrauhaus.
Oh no, that's not what I heard.
3 minutes away.
You were excited because
Three.
that house is opening up next to you, Chris, and it's 8 minutes away. Ooh.
Hofbrauhaus is a 45-second walk from where I work. So I'm pretty
Don't try and
rock
glaze
and
over
hit
the truth.
I'm pretty psyched when when that opens up. I could throw a rock at it. I'm not going to, but I could.
Throw it at Labatt.
We'll talk more about this offline.
Now, what I will say about what we are the Crikrat that we are drinking right now is that I am not a fan of Kolsch's at all.
Really?
I'm not, but I enjoy this. It's really easy drinking. I like the very mellow taste to it, but it's got a certain, I don't know, it's just the malt character I'm getting, but I could sit around in summer and drink this for
Getting
an
to
enjoyable
talk to
time.
Brian, he actually said that it was one of his favorite beers to drink currently. Just
good.
because on a hot summer day, you're not like we've said it before. Sometimes you need a beer that you don't need to think about.
Right.
Yeah.
You just want something easy drinking. You're not worried about your flavor profiles. You know, you just want something that's going to go down smooth and be good.
I really like the low key sweetness of a good Kolsch
Yeah.
like this. It's not like a huge malt body sweetness. It's more there's definitely that sweetness there, but it's low key, which adds to the easy drinkability of it, hot weather drinkability of it.
So right now, currently, like when I went in there, they have a tap list of 10 beers going right now, and I actually was sitting there and I had 7. I brought 5 ounces. I had 5 ounces. Okay, and then Brian came out and let me taste like 3 others. So it's probably actually more than 7 now that I think
Is that
about
why
it.
when you pulled up while I was walking in, you were like halfway hanging out the window and like
I had my
yelling at
fist
me
in
and-
the air. I was listening to a song.
Don't you?
Yes.
I think if I sing any more, we have to pay somebody.
No, we don't.
Oh, okay, cool.
Parodies are fine.
Nice.
And actually, so surprisingly, out of the tap list currently, if I did my count correctly, he's actually brewing 7 of the beers. Some of them are the original recipes from the owners and past brewers and things like that. 7 are his, and he was actually the one behind the recent Smash Tag, which we reviewed on a past episode a while back.
That never aired. That never aired.
Oh, that's right, it never aired. Fuck. Damn it, Chris. No.
Soon.
Maybe
Lost
soon.
episodes.
Yes.
One of the lost episodes.
One of the lost episodes, yeah.
The other one Dan lost. That's lost.
No,
for
I
good.
never lost it. I don't want to air it.
The other thing I loved about the place was the Irish pub feel.
You do love your Irish pubs.
Well, after being to Ireland and going, wow, this is all real. This is what I always hoped it would be. And then I go to Gene McCarthy's and I'm like, wow, this
the thing I noticed
similar.
is that on the walls,
Not the same,
one thing
but
that they actually
awesome.
always have
Less accents.
Guinness on tap.
Oh yeah.
And they're kind of, it's almost like it's a prideful thing. And it's like, you're right, this is the Irish workers, blue collar, this was, and now it's turned into something else. And I'm like,
It is
all
better
your
over
shirts
there.
are green, all like, you come, it's the
There's
old
flags
wood,
hanging from the wall.
But the old woodwork, you walk in and you're like, God, I want to be like, I hope I grow up to be like 80 and I get to just throw like $2 on the bar and just sit here and it's cheers. It's cheers. It's that mentality of you. It's a social club almost. But yeah, so he's brewing 7. He's actually coming out Buffalo Beer Week this week. He's actually coming out with Smash Tag again, as well as a double dry hopped Smash Tag, which I think he put out maybe last time. I don't remember specifically, and I don't want to hold myself to that. But getting to talk to Brian a lot, one of my favorite questions always to ask a brewer is not so much about your success, it's your failures. It gives us an insight of how just your creativity, where you like to go, what you like to do, or what you want to see, or what you want to try in the future. And he's got some cool things on the board. He told me he wanted to try and do a wild ale, which is very difficult to do with containing those yeasts. We tried one last week, but Alex, the restrictions on kind of trying to pull that off is not an easy task.
No.
He's the one I got to try, as we talked before, was I love Copper Legend. I love a lagered Oktoberfest from Jack's Abbey. He did a Busted Copper Ale, which was actually a happy mistake for him. And it's on tap right now, and I'm going to tell you, if you can, go and try it at least once, and you'll actually get a probably different taste, because what's interesting about it is he went to go pitch his yeast for this beer. The yeast he had was dead. Can't use it. You're not going to get a proper beer. You're going to get something funky. You're going to, Alex, you know what's going to happen more than I am. But so what he did was, what he had was a Pilsner yeast. So he pitched that to wake it up a little bit and get that beer going. Not the recipe exactly wanted, but not a bad beer. It's actually, I really enjoyed it. And it actually kind of reminded me a lot of a Copper Legend. And so what he's working on now is actually an Oktoberfest for October 1st, which will be a true Oktoberfest, which I think he's lagering for 10 weeks or something like that. I think he said 8 to 10 weeks. And then he's got another one that he doesn't know how it's going to turn out. I'm hoping it kind of, I don't know if it's going to make the tap. He doesn't know either. Recently there's been a rise in milkshake beers. These thick, I don't know, not even creamy, they're just thick fruit-forward beers that almost look like slushies. But he's working on a blueberry milkshake, and he doesn't know what's going to happen. It's kind of, he's just sitting in wait, and it's one of those things that it's going to, if it turns out, hey, fantastic. If it doesn't, I tried it, back to the drawing board, we try again. And that's kind of what we're excited to see about Buffalo right now.
It's always that first one, though. It's always that first batch that it's just like, okay, here we go. Let's try this. This is what I think is going to work. We'll see. And then from there, it's usually, I mean, for pretty much any brewer, it's usually like, okay, I see where this flavor came from. Now I'm going to tune up the recipe. The next batch is usually like 10 times better. If it's a batch where you're like, not what I was going for at all, it's usually the next one is pretty damn close.
Now, what I was thinking might be unique for the brewery, and this might, pardon if this is my naivete about not knowing much moving back to the area, but they don't distribute, do they?
No.
And that's I think, I love and don't love it. I love it because it makes it unique to the place you're in, and that's really cool. But I also like being able to go somewhere else and going, hey, it's that place. I love it. So it's kind of a...
The ones I brought tonight are
Bittersweet.
32 ounce growlers. They're small, taped up, good to go. They cost $10.
For the beer and the growler.
Beer in the growler. $10
not
is
bad.
not bad.
Not bad at all.
And I understand distribution, but that's a whole nother setup. A setup that they don't really have or cater to.
Yeah.
And what's nice is the fact that when they've been around for quite some time, and I still remember, even today, if you tell someone, oh, I really like Old First Ward, I still get people who go, well, what's Old First Ward? And then they're now, that district has started to come back again, and they're starting to hear about it. And they're going to, I was there today, and it was packed. Cars completely down the drive, full house inside, full everybody in the beer garden. And I told them that. I was like, I'm glad you're getting the recognition because your beers have been solid since day one.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, they don't need to. That wasn't my call
No.
to them to distribute. I just. It's interesting.
You come in, you sit down.
It is always nice, though, when breweries that you like distribute.
Yeah.
Because then you all of a sudden
Yes.
see it somewhere and you're like, yay!
But remember how I said cheers? I like the fact when every single time I've been in there, I have seen the same 70-year-old man sitting at the bar every day, having his Labatt Blues or whatever he's drinking in the same chair, and he just comes in, sits down, talks to the
Is that the one with the
bartender.
coat in his chair?
Maybe,
He's got, like,
I
his
don't
own
know.
dedicated seat.
But I'm like, God,
I remember
man,
seeing a guy. I was like, that guy has to
you've
be a
hit
regular.
legendary status.
I think he does. I don't know if that's
Hit
his chair
true
officially,
status.
Yeah.
but I know
He
the
just looks like
guy,
a ch-
and he is always in the same chair.
Okay.
It's
And they
kind
said
of
it's his
middle
chair.
or like
Yes.
off center in the bar.
Exactly. That's
And
where I saw
every
him.
single time he is there, and I think he just throws a 20 down, and it's just, here's your shot, here's your beer, here's your shot, here's your beer. Just keep going until the money's gone, and then he leaves. It really is that, it's that type of place. It's,
I wonder if someone's sitting in his seat, does he say something to them?
I
Turn
think
all-
the bartender said something
Oh,
to
yeah.
you.
Gets all Sheldon Cooper on him.
Or does... yeah, right?
It's my spot.
Or does he sit, like, right nearby, and then the second they leave, does he just pop back into his seat?
I'm pretty sure the bartenders all know who he is, and they say something like,
Well,
he's
I'm sure-
going to be in here in about 5 minutes. Can you move over to the left?
Yeah. And being the city of good neighbors,
You move.
or, yeah, you slide over.
Dan, what's the second Old First Ward beer that we have here?
Just open it up.
Which name would you like, Chris?
The first one.
The original?
Yes.
Or the name it's called now?
I smell a story.
There is a story. So while I was talking
I smell
to...
pizza.
Or do you taste a story? Is that what
I like
this is?
tasting a story.
Yeah.
So
I want to taste more pizza.
as I was talking to Brian, and he had to get back to work, and he was back to brewing, Bill Metzger, Brewing News, and showed up. He started talking to me, and he was telling me the story of the next beer we're about to drink, which on the tap list is called Hoppy Oasis IPA, another one of I believe Brian's creations. But the original name, while at festivals, was not the original name intended. It is IP fucking A. Okay. Oh, thank you, Tim. Which I thought was great.
IP fucking A.
IP fucking A.
Let's cheers to that.
Yes.
Cheers to that name.
And Brian.
To Brian. But a friend of mine who was sitting there just kept trying to fake trash the place and their good and sully their name. But the thing is, he couldn't do it all that well because he had like 3 glasses of beer in front of him that were empty, and he was drinking a 4th. And even,
That should make it easier to trash a place.
Yeah.
yes, except even he's told me to get this beer. He goes, "I'm really liking this." So unfortunately, he just couldn't bullshit me.
Fucking A.
Exactly, IP fucking A. And Brian was nice enough. Fuck you. And Brian was nice enough to give me just a nice sample of it, and I was like, "This is just well rounded to me. It's just
Delicious
a good IPA."
IPA, yeah.
And
It's really good.
So for he did tell me, and actually I have the description. Hoppy Oasis IPA is sitting at 7%. A delicious, smooth, crisp IPA made with Mosaic, Nelson Sauvignon, and El Dorado hops. He was trying to go for more of a West Coast style. Interesting enough, he actually prefers, it seems like, a more West Coast style. A little bit more bitterness or I shouldn't say bitterness, because he actually described more of the New England, the juicy IPAs as being a little more bitter or fruit forward. And when he said that, I was kind of taken back a little bit. And the thing when he said bitterness, the only thing I could refer to was the pith when it comes to fruit. That bitterness you get, that almost weird pill flavor that you can sometimes pick up. That I don't really see, at least not in this beer. I don't get a strong...
I don't know if I'd say clean, which is in the description. And that's not a dig at all. But there's a certain abrasiveness to this beer, which I think goes back to the bitterness to it. Really?
I don't think it has an abrasiveness to it.
I'm getting it's not super abrasive, but I'm definitely getting an abrasiveness to it.
See, compared to like the Smash Tag, or I told him, we actually reviewed his, when we did do that episode on 363 from Big Ditch, Old First Word Smash Tag, and Preemption from 42. We all had our different tastes, and you guys went towards Preemption, I went towards Smash Tag. The one we thought was the most aggressive was 363. I don't see the aggressiveness in this one compared to something like that.
Interesting.
To me, it's a beer. If someone was asking me for the example of a great IPA for the style, it'd be this. Like, there's a lot of IPAs we've all had that are like hop bombs or juice bomb. Like, I use the word bomb. Juice bombs are just things that like really stand out because it's super like Sip of Sunshine or Heady. The ones that really enjoyed by those IPAs, they're all great. This to me is like, if someone said, what's a really I don't want anything fancy, just a good IPA, I'd say try the IPFNA, or what's the other?
IP fucking A.
Or the Oasis, the Hoppy Oasis.
What,
like,
you
it's
can't
just
say
a...
fuck?
I can. I have a 2-year-old at home.
He's not listening to the show.
IP fucking A. Alright, or Hoppy Oasis. But it's just one of those that, like, I think it's a perfect example of the style.
Son's a drinker.
No, he's not.
You took a picture of him at the bar with a growler in front of him.
It's adorable.
He's a discerning drinker. Only goes for the good stuff.
You can see the water cup, his little juice cup next to him.
Juice.
Was it a juice bomb?
It's a juice bomb is what it is. Okay, we're making Tim seem like he's a bad parent.
Wow.
Tim's a great
Ryan, if you're
parent.
listening to this later, I'm sorry.
Or, to your future son, I'm not sorry. I got you started on craft beer. No, but I absolutely had a great time. I'm looking forward to going back, and I hope to have Brian and Bill on the show in the future, because I think it's going to be a good show.
So up next, out of Pressure Drop Brewing, which is in that same district, so I'm glad we hopped from Old Forest Ward to Pressure Drop. Maybe might have been on purpose, maybe, like we planned it. But it's a collaboration brew actually between Pressure Drop Brewing and Big Ditch. They made Aqua Buddha, which is
I want to rub its belly.
very, very tasty. Buddha did not actually have a big belly, so remember that history
It's
fact.
warming my belly. It's rubbing it on the inside.
I just poured some. The first sniff, I just thought, wow, that stank.
Yeah.
Oh, it's danky, all right. It's an Imperial Double IPA. It's got an awesome can art, which obviously being an audio
It's
show,
Imperial
you cannot
and
see.
double?
It is. Go figure.
If you want to see it,
Say
go
that.
follow us on Instagram or Pressure Drop or Big Ditch.
Yeah. They
Follow all the breweries. All the breweries.
They describe it, or whoever came up with the Untapped post, it's notes of tangerine, white peach, and gooseberry on the nose with a bitter and dank punch. Full-bodied with a silky, smooth finish. I must agree wholeheartedly. Very dank, delicious.
What is a gooseberry?
I was going to say,
I
every
don't
fruit
know.
you mentioned, everybody knows, except for probably what a gooseberry is.
I also don't like tangerines or peaches, so
Have you ever had a gooseberry?
I don't
I
know
don't like a
that
lot
I
of fruits.
have.
They're a little
I like the
tart.
taste of fruits.
They look really weird because they're it's this ball that I obviously
a berry.
audio only. You can't see how big I'm showing, but like it's about this big, and it has this like out of the stem part, it creates a I don't know, like a coating around it. Someone look up a gooseberry.
I'm literally looking at a gooseberry right now, and I'm trying to figure out what
they're
this is.
really weird.
Listeners, if you're not driving or doing surgery or whatever else people do while they listen to this podcast, go look up gooseberry.
Yeah, they're just really weird. And like you unfold the like wrapper, that it makes itself, and then like you just bite it right off of it. And they're kind of tart, a little bit
Can you
sweet.
say that slower, Alex?
No.
Aw. No, I actually, it
Later.
almost looks like grapes you have to peel.
Yes.
Which would just
Yes,
piss
but
me
once
off.
they're the thing is though, once they're ripe, that little thing around them, it just folds back.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what it is.
Cape
It's
gooseberry.
kind of got the...
Looks like a grape
almost like a
tomato that's
tomatillo.
orange.
Yes,
The heck's a tomatillo?
Dan, paint us a sound picture.
I'm very not
a
cultured with
tomatillo
fruit,
or a
apparently.
gooseberry?
Both.
Well, okay. Well, no, Alex did a great job. It's almost... If I had to guess from what I'm looking at, from flower to berry, it starts out, the berry grows inside its own petals, essentially. The petals drop, and then you're left with the fruit.
Well, the
Probably
petals-
completely wrong?
the petals don't drop.
I thought you
like-
said that. Oh, they open,
No,
or
they
reopen, or
they
you said
are
you
like
peel.
around the fruit.
Okay.
So you
have
kind
to
of
peel that open.
peel the flowers back or the leaves almost.
All right,
back.
you know what? Everybody who's listening to this episode, just go find some gooseberries and try them.
Yeah. Back to the beer.
They're actually pretty good.
Probably are. Just,
I enjoyed
I've
it.
never
Based
had
on
a
the taste
gooseberry.
of this beer.
You said tomatillo, and they are very similar. They're almost when you bite into it, you look at it and you're like, "Is this a tomato?" It looks very similar to a tomato on the inside.
Tomatillo, some people confuse them with green tomatoes. They are not. But is actually a berry. But has that same structure on the outside. You have to peel it back. And you'll see your salsa verdes and things like that out of it. But other than that, who cares? Let's back to the beer.
Tim,
Yay,
I'm curious.
beer.
What did your son think of this beer?
He kept asking why he couldn't have any. I keep telling him it's daddy juice, to which he always says, I want daddy juice. And I go, not yet.
So what you
You have
do
a
is
long
you actually
time.
give him juice.
Yeah. Well, I gave him water, but that didn't work.
It's not, because
No.
it's got no flavor. You give him juice.
No, I know.
You
Well,
tell the people behind the bar to just pour some apple juice.
they were a bit busy.
and juice.
It was the release event. So, but one thing I will say definitely that was kind of neat about this beer compared to a brewery we talked about last time, and I've had an interview with, is I love when breweries we enjoy collaborate. Because it's very rare that we find a collaboration beer from two good breweries that I don't like. So that the fact that this turned out so well is fantastic. And we love Big Ditch, and now I think I'm a fan of Pressure Drop too. I tried their Dan, don't be offended, the Black Alicious beer. That was their the stout that they had on tap, and that was quite delicious as well.
Blackalicious?
Yep, that is the name. Yes.
It's big
I'm
too.
not offended. I'm just annoyed.
That's like what, 10%?
Yeah, it's 11% actually. Yeah, it's a
I'm
heavy
sorry,
guy.
but that's the beer my first beer I ever did homebrewing. It was an Oktoberfest, and I called it Blacktober.
Blacktoberfest.
And I look back at the beer, I'm like, oh my god, I could have done so much better. Like, really, that's what you came up with? Blackalicious?
Yes.
I was there when you were coming up with it.
It's like I'm hoping they had a black brewer on hand when they decided this name. Just as like, all right, I approve of this because.
They come up with it. Everyone pauses and looks at the black brewer. Black brewer just nods. And they're like,
Yes.
Either way, I enjoyed it. I like the location. Again, that area is just kind of nice to drive by, that old Irish area. Again, full disclosure, I am quite Irish, so I enjoyed that atmosphere. But it's got a distillery
you want a
attached to it, don't they?
potato?
I
Yeah.
love potatoes. What are you saying? I'm offended.
Want me to give you a potato? Do you want to eat it or drink it? Both.
a
Okay,
year
I'm sorry, that was wrong of me. I'm literally I love Archer jokes that no one will ever understand.
a year or two ago, I was talking to the owner of the building. So not the particular thing, but just the building. And he described it as he wanted the barrel factory, which is where it's located, to basically be like an adult theme park. So he wanted, like everything, like
Picturing so many horrible things.
oh yes,
Out of Dan's dirty mind.
out of Dan's dirty mind.
You
I should
picture an
say
adult theme park? Come on.
I'm picturing booze everywhere.
I really got
Yeah.
to back on track. I've had
So,
so much.
Booze.
Okay.
You?
Yeah.
Booze everywhere.
So that's that's kind of what's going on. Is you have a distillery there, you have a brewery there. I know there were
They have
plans.
kombucha.
I think there's still plans for winemaker that's going to
Kombucha.
put a place there. So once they have that, they'll have wine.
There's a kayak store.
They do have
there.
kombucha.
Yeah.
The
They do
kayak store's
growler
been there
fills-
for a while.
Oh yeah. They do growler fills of the kombucha too,
Yes.
which is kind of cool. So yeah, great stuff. I've never been. That was my first time there. It was one of those ones that I moved back to town, and I think it was one of you guys mentioned Pressure Drop, and I was like, another new one? Okay, cool. I'll go check
There's
it out.
always a new one too.
I know, it's fantastic.
The restaurant in there too is very impressive. They do
Yeah.
a beef on weck pizza that is
That's
phenomenal.
right.
Pizza.
You had mentioned the fact you love a collaboration.
I do.
One of the things I'm hoping to do with this show, and I think we're all on board for it, is we're going over the border at some point.
Ooh. Uncharted territory.
No.
The Great White North.
The Great Night North.
We'll get our tubes on.
Buffalo's being so close. We're 2 hours away. We're doing some awesome collaborations with Canada. I am hoping to get up there and just tour the shit out of that city.
And maybe hit the Hockey Hall of Fame, because I still haven't gone there. I know, me being the hockey person I am, I've never
Seriously?
never gone.
God, I
there.
was there when I was 12.
We went to the gift shop last time we were
Yeah.
there.
There's a great restaurant right next to it, Marche. I fully recommend it.
I've been to the Wayne Gretzky restaurant. I've never been
Also
to that.
delicious.
Yes, it was.
We should find a Toronto beer podcast to collaborate with.
What's
while we're
that?
up there.
Toronto
yes.
Pod. We tried to do a little thing, but no, it didn't really take off. Chris and I were at Bellwoods on a night excursion. It took an Uber drive, and the taxi driver was adamant on finding us ladies, which was very, very awkward when we were just like, we just want to find the brewery. Just drive us to the brewery.
And weren't you guys sharing a hotel room?
With
Another male friend. We were there for a Comic-Con. Hey, Comic-Con. Is there time for ladies
Actually,
at
yeah,
Comic-Con?
and
cosplayers.
They're
It's not.
cosplayers.
It wasn't as illicit as it sounds. He said we're going to this place. He's like, oh yeah, bar. You're gonna pick up some ladies. And we're like, actually, we're really interested in the beer. And he didn't seem to get it. He's like, but there's gonna be girls there. Like, well, we assume so, but we're not going to pick up girls. We're going to try the
They
beer
want to try their beer.
at this brewery.
He could not figure
He just
this
didn't
out.
get through with it. So he like started giving us tips and like, oh, if you're going to a bar, you got to pick up girls. We're like, thank you for your
Like, he
advice.
dropped us off. He goes, "Have fun with the ladies." And it's like, I don't actually want to tip you because you're freaking me out. But yeah, that's down the line. Back to the local, back to the stateside.
Yeah. Actually, this is really good. And I have to say that when you got Pressure Drop, and I was just like, I wonder what he's going to get. Because I have yet to have a bad beer from them.
Yeah.
So I was interested to see what you were going to get.
Do you have a
And
favorite?
with this, no, they're all good.
They're all good.
I like
I've
Sticky Trees
just-
a lot.
Sticky Trees.
Sticky
delicious.
Trees was
It
really
is
good.
I got a
really
can of that
good,
from
yeah.
Wegmans, which
Yeah.
they were all excited.
They're
I saw on their
distributing.
Instagram.
I'm happy that they're putting out cans.
Yeah.
But I remember we went to Buffalo on Tap, and I found my brewery when I found Pressure Drop. I was like, you are the ones. And I sat there for the rest of the night. I'm like, I'm just
You
featured.
are.
My fire.
Oh, God.
Actually, you did start singing with someone that night.
No, I ended up finding and I hate to say this, another interracial couple. And we ended up drinking all night, and they started telling me, and it was a beautiful thing. I was like, I'm so happy for you guys. I'm like, you give me hope for the world. And I was so proud of them. And it like filled my heart with love. And we were just drunk. And I was like, I really need to get out of here.
Sounds like inebriation was a key part of the story.
Indeed.
They probably thought you were trying to get in on their thing.
Dude was cute.
All right.
So we know who's been drinking more than us.
No, we know whose person knows to toe which line. I have no problem embarrassing myself.
Tom, gotta get a Phillip. Not a Phillip, top off. Not a top off. About
Buffalo,
halfway
you
up.
have provided
You
us
should make him call you the proper name, though.
Tippy Tom. I want to use Tippy Tom.
Even I'll have a little more. Maybe save some for my wife.
Maybe.
Hey, I am very proud to say that my wife is an IPA hop
Yes.
loving girl who also enjoys saisons. You thought I'd
Lost-
say walks on the beach. No,
No.
Saisons.
No. I know her as a beer drinking girl, and the fact that anytime like sip of sunshine, favorite. I was like, I can always count on her for that.
It helps that the brewery that makes that is her maiden name.
Yes, the
Boston
fact that
Liquids.
I think when you guys first moved back, ran into her at Aurora Brewworks, and I said. And she's like, well, Tim just wanted me to pick him something up. And she's trying to find beers. And some beers are getting, like, the $7 can and stuff like that is, like,
They're
holy
pricey.
shit.
Yeah.
And then I said, Laura. And she is like, what? I said, the cooler sip of sunshine. And she goes, what? And she goes over there. And what I loved the most was she bought the 4-pack of sip of sunshine, bought you 1 can of beer.
Yeah,
And
she
I was
absolutely
like,
did.
yes!
She comes back and I look, I go, what'd you get? She goes, I got you this. And I was like, oh, well, thanks. That's awesome. And then she pulls out the 4-pack and I go, and what's that? Who was that for?
I was like, okay.
Yeah.
I was proud of her. I was like, Laura got herself a little something, something.
Love of my life.
All right, let's move on to our last brewery.
More beer, more beer.
So we're moving on to the last brewery of the night, New York Beer Project, and we are drinking the One New England IPA.
So it's the Neo of beers. Sorry, I had to. Think of the first movie.
It's not
the
dressed
other
all
two.
in black.
I appreciate that you
I
did.
cried during that movie.
Yeah?
Was not happy.
Oh, okay. All right. This is delicious.
Let us
I
have
really
a
like
moment.
it. It's
Yeah.
smooth. It's juicy.
So the interesting thing about this beer, Jason, the brewer there, mentioned that they were having a hard time keeping it on tap because it's going so quick. And this beer actually came right off of the fermenter. Because they are doing something where they are closing off where the CO2 comes out of the fermenter to keep the CO2 in there to naturally carbonate the beer before just topping it off and getting it to the carbonation level they want. So this is naturally carbonated in the fermenter.
Interesting.
Wow.
Now, is
And
that
this is a very, very fresh version of a New England IPA.
is that because like a creative solution to not having a place to put it at later, or is it a thing they're purposefully doing to add freshness to the beer?
Personally, from a bottle conditioning and from a homebrew scale, like actually bottle conditioning beers and then forcing carbonation into them, I have noticed that bottle conditioned, I feel like the CO2 is a little more finer bubbles and a little softer on the palate than forcing carbonation into a beer, into a keg. That's a personal thing for me. But it also, if you think about what they're doing, they're keeping a lot of CO2 in that beer before they carbonate it in the bright tank. So they're not going to be adding as much CO2 back into it. So, I mean, it's going to save them money in the long run. But I think it's just a really awesome thing that he literally took this off the fermenter and it's got a decent amount of level in there.
Yeah,
CO2.
and it does taste fresh AF. That's
I'm looking forward to going back there. Mm-hmm. This is one of those other breweries that for me specific was I gotta go back and give them a second go.
Yeah, when I went there right after, that was literally the first brewery I went to after we moved back. And the big thing I keep hearing and over
They're
and over
better.
again is you gotta go to brunch. All I hear about is how
I do like
fantastic their brunches are. And
Their food was excellent.
We wanna
I
go.
will say that.
Oh
Their
my
food
God.
was really
oh
good.
yeah, we had food when we went, and it was
I think the
shout out.
best.
My cousin is a sous chef there, Monica. Shout out to her.
Ooh,
Nice.
there you go, man.
free munchies.
We can try.
Can't hurt.
But
So
so
the last
their
the last
beer was
couple
growing.
times
They
the last
were-
couple times I went there, I've been stuck on this burger. It's called Breakfast at Tiffany's, and it's
They've got a breakfast game going on apparently.
oh my god!
they
like
do.
I mean, it's bacon and a fried egg on a burger with arugula. Like it's just it's so good.
Let's go now.
And
we'll
podcast
be
over.
back.
No, but I just just starting out, I do remember just a few beers hit or miss, and that I was but brand new. This place had just opened up, and they have a lot.
Oh yeah.
There's
Oh, yeah.
a lot
There's-
going on when you walk into that place, and
It's a
little-
massive building.
it's a massive building. It's actually slightly overwhelming. You walk in and you're like, "Holy crap!"
It's
Well, you
it's
know,
two
when
levels,
you're-
right?
Yeah. And
Yeah,
when you're
which you
driving
don't
down
realize when
transit
you're
and you
there.
finally pull up to it too, like the right side, if you're driving north on transit, like the right side of the road just kind of opens up into a massive parking lot, and you just see this big building, and it's just like, holy crap! You're right. It's a little intimidating when you
Yeah.
first see it. It's like, wow, this is a big place.
This is not what you're expecting. You actually kind of sit back and you're like, "That's not what I was expecting when I'm going to New York Beer Project." Something you almost were expecting something a little more, not even subtle, but you're like, "No, they put money behind this for a reason to get your butts over there
Yeah.
and do this because they're backing this project." Hence, New York Beer Project.
And it's a gorgeous building.
It really is.
Gorgeous
And
project.
So for me, it's been. I mean, I wish I knew. I don't have a note in front of me of when they opened, because I remember they first opened up. I was down that way for a friend's art show. We went there afterwards.
I want to say it's about 2 years ago now.
I live in the complete opposite direction, anywhere close to New York Beer Project. It's
Wild
not
corner.
convenient in the least.
This is one of the rare Buffalo breweries that's not a 10-minute driving distance from my work.
Yes. Congratulations, Chris.
Capital.
So for me, I don't get to go there often. So I've only been around that area twice, and the second time I've been there in the last 2 years, I wasn't there. So for me, the fact that I'm seeing this from the last time I was there is a tremendous amount of growth in my eyes. For you, Chris, who've been there more times than I, you probably see it as a more of a gradual change, and you're seeing a progression that's really kind of heading in a great direction, which is the focus of these podcasts.
Right, and I work at a place right around the corner. It takes me 5 minutes to get there. So I've gone there many a time in the past year that I've been working at this place, and I have definitely seen the growth, and they have some incredible beers on tap. Like the Supernatural, it's a passion fruit sour, and it is so good. I had a tasting of a strawberry and basil.
Ooh.
What was it? Strawberry basil.
Trying to find
or
my
other.
check-ins from.
You're losing me, Alex. Come
Strawberry
back.
basil saison.
Yay!
There he
That
is.
was really good. They did their flagship IPA is called Destination IPA, and they did a Hawaiian Destination
Yes,
IPA.
that's what I had.
I don't know exactly what they
If
did
there's
to
not
it, but
coconut,
it's really
pineapple,
good.
and guava, I want to know nothing.
Pineapple for sure.
There's got to be pineapple.
Oh yeah, it was. I remember that was one of the ones that I had when I went there in my flight, and it was delicious.
Pineapple is God's fruit.
New York Beer Project,
Yeah.
when we were at Beerology, which we did the episode, we recorded actually at there, and that's 2 or 3, maybe 4 episodes back now. But New York Beer Project was there, and I loved what they did with, they had, I forgot what the stout was, and then they had a cherry blonde ale, and they'd pour a little bit of the cherry blonde into the stout. So it was like pouring, or like
that's
putting
right.
a cherry on top of
It was a
Of,
chocolate
chocolate
covered
sundae?
chocolate covered strawberry or something, wasn't it? It was a cherry. No,
It was cherry.
Chocolate covered cherry. I don't remember. Now I want more.
Yeah.
Now I want
that was delicious.
Yeah,
that
that was
that
really
mixture
good.
of the two beers.
Yep.
Still trying to find my.
No, I would like to get up to more of the North Towns. They're Woodcock Brothers up going up that way, and New York
Niagara.
Beer Project, Niagara. Yeah, there's some smaller breweries that I know are popping up out that way towards the wine trail and things like that that I have not been able to go to, and I kind of want to get up there. So
Yeah. One of the ones I remember loving from now that I found my check-ins, but I remember now unlocking my beer history, is the Triple Crown from New York Beer Product. That is their Imperial Double Stout, which I remember was awesome. Very heavy but delicious. Not one you should drive after drinking. Not that you should ever drive to drinking, but especially not that one.
What's the
not
ABV
yet.
on that one?
Yes. That one.
what is the ABV on this? Do you know, Alex?
This is 5.8.
Really? That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And on the
Yep. I do have a question for you. Compared to our Old First Ward, you don't find this more aggressive or more abrasive?
I do.
Because I was like, I'm getting this scratch
Yeah, I do.
back of my
I do
throat,
get that little bit of bitiness, but Jason actually said that their New England style, they wanted it to have a little more bitterness to it.
Bitterness is fine. Like I said before, the abrasiveness I literally take as a physical characteristic of abrasive. I think Brillo pad on my throat, and I've gotten that out of some.
Damn.
I've literally gotten that out of some beers. There's something, if you've ever it feels like a hop plant. If you've ever brushed up against one, the bristles of a hop plant literally brushing against your skin. That is what I take away when I think of abrasive.
Harvesting hops is oh my god! You have to wear like long gloves, or else your entire arms are going to be just destroyed.
When you told me Old versus Ward was abrasive, I was kind of shocked. When I drink this, I pick it up. It's lingering in my throat. I still get the taste of the hops. I still think it's a great, juicy New England style IPA. I think it's right in that category. I get this little tickle.
I think that's pretty great that they are playing around with the New England style, especially since the New England style or those kind of hazy IPAs. It's like a lot of breweries are doing that now, and just doing another one that tastes the same as all the others isn't that interesting.
Right.
But using that style and then playing around with it, like adding some abrasiveness and really getting some of that bitterness to shine through, while it's still definitely a hazy, juicy New England style IPA, that's really interesting and good for them for doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was happy when I went. They had the World Cup games on. I love me some soccer.
I went there the other night and for dinner, and I was sitting there, and all of a sudden, preseason football came on. I was like, yay! Big screen TVs. I mean, like, I just got a spot at the bar, and I was just chowing down on my burger, and I was like, yay, football.
You ever been there for a Bill? What? Obviously an away game, but a Bills game. I'm curious. Like,
I have not yet.
That might be something to check out this year.
Yes,
Yeah.
for sure.
I want to go to Toronto for the Bills game.
Real quick, Thursday nights there, it's trivia night. So I think we need to do a trivia night there.
Yeah, we could do
You
it.
can start a Your Brand House trivia group.
I thought we did.
I think we should.
I thought
Yeah.
we
That's a
did.
good idea.
When was this?
I'm not sure. I think it was you and I, though, only playing.
It's not
I was
really
gonna say,
Your
I
Brand
really
House.
No, we weren't all there.
I've
but
never done trivia with the two of you.
we do a lot of things without you, Al.
Ooh.
Aw,
I know. I feel
wow.
bad, too. I love you, buddy.
I'm leaving.
Insert
taking this
womp
beer with
womp
me.
sound effect.
As long as you don't take this one.
Womp womp.
Yeah, we can add sound effects later.
Like a gong?
We could.
That was
All right.
a terrible gong.
It was.
I was actually going to put in a womp womp sound effect, but that was really good. Depending on playback,
We
I
don't
might
need no
sleep that.
stinking soundboards where we work.
Like that. What was the guy
So-
from Spaceballs that makes all the sound effects?
Fuck Spaceballs.
Why would
What?
you
I
do
said that.
What?
Yes, I said it. Now on to the next beer.
Boo, Dan.
No,
The assholes we got working in this place anyway.
one right here.
Keep firing, assholes.
I fucking hate that movie.
Oh, it's so good. All right.
So moving on. What were you going to say about the beer?
I wanted to know about the next beer.
Oh, the next
The
one.
next beer, we're
Oh,
just
we're
still
still on
drinking this one.
Okay, okay, tell me more.
Did he put up a fight?
Told you everything.
So, do they have...
Sorry, I'm all movie references tonight.
You are. You're slaying these movie references.
Dan's gonna hit me with the can, isn't he?
I was looking for a slogan.
Oh, I don't know what this is.
I was actually
It says
wondering
made here with an arrow.
Because the back of the can is actually very long, and I'm like, that's not a slogan. I love the message. I read it earlier, but that's a very... I can't read that off. Unless Alex wants to right now, because he's
I like that they call themselves a project. Because I feel like a lot of what we talk about with people messing around, tinkering, collaborating, it is all a project. It's an art form. We did a lot. We
You want to know what
elaborated
makes
on
me...
that last time.
Can I say something?
Hold on. So speaking of things being a project, we are going to open this next beer.
Yay!
Because this is called Righteous Dude Double IPA.
Really?
Righteous
Righteous
Dude.
Dude?
Ferris
Righteous Dude.
Bueller. There we
That's not what I
go.
was going for.
Oh,
So,
it's with the secretary in the school. Oh.
Really? Different movie?
Are you going with the dude
The
from
dude, I
Big
was going for
Lebowski?
the dude.
I'm that one guy, sorry everybody, that does not
See,
like that
there's
movie.
always one. And I'm not even a fan of that movie, but that reference was, that's why.
Yeah, oh yeah. I have a lot of friends that love
So-
it. Shout out Adam.
Being a project, this beer did not seem to be a project for them. Because Jason told me that this beer was a test batch, and then when it was scaled up, they tuned it up maybe once or twice, and have never changed it since. Because they have liked it.
Can says just dude on it. There is something that has always.
They were calling it the Dude,
and I think someone already did that.
and on the board it's called Righteous Dude.
There is, and this is not a problem because last beer we had was delicious, and I'm finishing it so I can have Righteous Dude.
The Dude.
There is something that's always bothered me though about their logo.
What?
It's the New York Beer Project, the NYBP, in the symbols of the subway system always bring me to New York City. Not Western New York.
Interesting.
But I don't know. But now that I'm thinking about it, I don't know if they're the same straight across through New York.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
The other thing I like about them...
Because on the can, it actually literally says, made here. And it shows
Right,
Buffalo.
with New York State, and then it points right to Buffalo.
Yeah. Which a lot of people don't... I mean, shout out to any of our non-New York State resident
New York
fans.
City is not Buffalo.
Yes, and upstate is not Buffalo.
Buffalo.
That's like Lake
Literally,
Placid.
Can we cut the tail off?
Yeah.
Just because I'm sick of my taxes. Taxes
Taxation,
are too damn high.
taxation is theft, right?
When I was traveling all the time for work, people would ask me, "Oh, where are you from?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, Buffalo." And they're like, "Oh, New York, cool. Like, you must go to the city a lot." I'm like, "No, I'm on the other complete opposite side of the state."
Mm-hmm. I would tell people in Maryland, I'm closer right now in Maryland to New York City than I was back home. No, you're not. Look at a map, sir. Whoa, it's a big state. I'm like, it's not that big. It's just wider than people realize. But what I was going to say about New York Beer Project that I like is that a lot of their events are very unique. Like upcoming, not to promote them specifically, but they have a fire pit silent disco on August 25th coming up, which is kind of cool. I've heard of that concept before. You put the headphones on, they play the music. I'm on their website.
They've done silent discos before.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
That's just a cool, unique idea. And a lot of their events are like, they have a Prost Fest coming up September 2nd.
I saw the silent disco on Facebook today, actually, and it seemed like it's an annual thing now that they do a silent disco to like close out their patio for the year. I don't know if that's exactly what it's for, but that's the impression I got.
Yeah,
and
the impression that you get.
And here you go again.
That's a music reference.
But I immediately said, interested. I would go to a silent disco.
Yeah.
So one of the things I like about the crawlers, so it has the kind of how it started this discussion. It has New York State on the crawler, and then they have made here, pointing to a star where the brewery is located, just north of Buffalo. So there is context on the crawler as well.
Okay.
They are just north. I like that I'm closer to it now, because just like Dan being from where he's from and me growing up in the Alden East Aurora area, Marilla, it's a very long... We used to go to Transit Drive-In. Awesome place to see... I mean, one of the only places to see drive-in movies in the area.
The Buffalo one shut down.
Yeah.
So
it's
it is the only one in this area.
Yeah. So whenever we go there, we're like, let's go to the drive-in. Yeah, it's an hour drive. Oh, okay. So you go all the way down Transit. Whereas now, living in North Buffalo, it's much more convenient to go to New York Beer Project. And
That's why I built my own movie screen in my backyard that I never used.
It's worth the trip, though, to go to New York Beer Project. Their beers are definitely worth it.
And that's something I didn't realize before, is this podcast is really people from the south towns of Buffalo. Mm-hmm. We have Alden, East Aurora-ish / Elma, and then Elma.
Yeah, but let's be honest. We were Southtown boys.
Yeah.
I mean,
we know what lake effects are like.
You know, though, before I moved up to Williamsville, I never really went to New York Beer Project. And now that I'm up there, I go there quite often. Like, actually, drive-in, I went there for dinner before the drive-in, got a crowler, and then went to the drive-in.
And enjoyed the crowler thoroughly, I'm sure.
Right. And I also had a few all-day IPAs with me, so...
What
was
movie
good.
was it? Were you watching a marathon? You watched both of them, didn't
Well,
you?
oh, of course. I'm not going to go to the drive-in and not watch both
Exactly,
movies.
yeah. What was it?
This was last year, so I don't remember.
I didn't hear what the style was, and you said it was a...
Double IPA.
I get a very nutty, toasted characteristic out of it, but I get the aggressive, abrasive feeling, and then I do get the bitterness. I don't get any type of citrus, or I really don't know. Do you know what hops?
I believe this was Amarillo.
Okay, that would be...
I actually do have it.
Because I'm picking up something a little sweeter. So I was kind of shocked that...
Amarillo has always given me a sugar character.
Yeah, I'm getting sweet.
Yeah.
I...
That's a personal thing for me. I've heard other people say it too. But this is Amarillo Cascade, which is all local Cascade. Citra and Topaz.
See, I'm surprised there's Citra. I don't not like the beer. I was surprised when you said double dry hopped IPA.
No.
Double IPA.
Double IPA.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, double IPA.
It's an it's a stronger IPA. But I get what you're talking about. It almost when I'm drinking this, it's like an IPA and a strong ale had a bastard child. And that bastard child is this beer.
Beautiful child.
Jon Snow of beers.
It is the righteous.
I haven't even seen the show, and I thought everyone liked Jon Snow.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I like this beer.
Well, I like this beer.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't call it a bastard.
He's still a bastard
He's a
child.
bastard.
Well, yeah, but he's still a
Yeah,
bastard.
but I only call people I don't like bastards.
But by definition of the word. Never mind.
Exactly, and you know I'm right too.
But one thing I thought was neat, I'm reading their About Us page.
Red Wing.
But they were doing R&D trips, and they went to Downingtown, PA, which I have been to. That's where Victory Brewing is.
Yes, it is.
And, yeah, delicious brewery. Hop Wallop of Glory was a mix I had from them that was really good.
Hop Wallop of Glory?
Yes, it was a mix of two of their beers that they put in a
I
growler
had
for me.
Hop Wallop.
Yakima Glory was an old beer they had, and they mixed the
Yakima.
two in a growler for me.
Yes.
And it was
I just want to
fantastic.
pause and acknowledge the awesomeness of that name.
Oh, I know.
Hop Wallop of Glory.
Isn't it awesome? That's why I said, well, you got to try this one. I
I like
Hop
the
Wallop
fact that
Glory.
that
I'm
was
like,
it. And I
you
heard
mixed two and
Yakima.
came up with an even better name. That's great. But anyway, so they
That's what
based
you hear.
their
I hear Yakima.
their family friendly attitude towards that, because that was one thing I went there with when I did go to New York Beer Project. I went with my wife and our son, who my son has been to more breweries than most kids should ever go to at his age. But to be fair, we always check for a kids meal option.
Lucky.
Lucky him, yeah. And but then we went with my brother-in-law and sister-in-law and their two kids, and they had food that we could all eat. They had, I mean, it never, because sometimes you go to a brewery and you're like, yeah, it smells like beer has been here for a while. It doesn't seem like a lot of families come here. They don't even have high chairs, and you're like, okay, great. I can't really bring a family here. I'll go here myself and enjoy a beer, and that's fine. New York Beer Project
Must
seems
have
to
been
go.
those Maryland breweries.
Yeah, it might have been, yeah. But New York Beer Project definitely has that strong focus of, we want you to come. If you're a beer nerd, but you're married and have kids, we still want you to come, and we want you to bring them too. And that was really cool about the place.
That's a really good point. Is a lot of Buffalo breweries do have that either family focus or like dog friendly focus. It's not just, you're not going there to drink and get drunk. It's it's an actual congenial atmosphere at them. Like 42 North, New York Beer Project,
Right.
Buffalo Brewing Company, the beer garden out back. A lot of Buffalo breweries do focus on that, and it might be the whole good neighbor atmosphere that they want to embody.
Well, even Pressure Drop. They had the whole outdoor patio area. The restaurant had tons of seating, so
True.
you could definitely bring your family and young kids there and enjoy the food while you enjoy a flight. I mean, it's great. That's the one thing I don't know what I ever pictured about, like, my early experiences in breweries, whether when the first time I went to Goose Island before they sold out, and stuff like that. But, like, those breweries felt like that's a brewer's brewery, whereas these places, they are that, but at the same time, they want you to be able to bring your family too. So it's a place for everyone. And not just someone as, I will say, as lucky as I am to have a wife who loves craft beer. It's just a place you can go and bring people and have a good time.
Now that is an interesting point. Are you now? If you had a wife that didn't like craft beer, you know your beer would be safe. Mm-hmm. Do you ever have to designate?
Oh yes. All
right, Laura, this is my beer.
I don't want to talk about this
So
subject.
Well,
in
then
the married world, as I am the one here that's married. Oh no, I love it. Don't get me wrong. There has been the occasional issue where I buy a 4-pack of whatever beer it is. It might be Sip of Sunshine. It might be another one, and I do have to specify. Okay, because I know you got to drink those fresh. No kidding. But fresh can be within 2 weeks typically. Faster than that is usually better. But I like to, I have moments, and I'm sure we all do, where you want to sit and, gosh, today has just been a day. A really good beer will pick me up and let me enjoy my evening and all that. And, but sometimes Laura also doesn't love aging beers. So when I have a rum barrel aged pumpkin in the fridge and I'm like, oh, that's going to sit for a while. And she goes, hey, can we open that? And I never really have a great answer other than we have to age it. And she's going to go, you have been for 7 months. And I'm like, yeah, how about another 5? How about we drink it? And I have to sit there and go, yeah. I never regret it.
So
Your first mistake, though, is don't put it in the fridge.
Yes.
Put it somewhere in the dark, in your
hold
cellar, somewhere like that.
In a nondescript box.
Exactly, that she doesn't see it.
Next to the
Because
Star
when
Wars
she
fridge.
looks in the fridge all the time and sees it, then she's constantly thinking about it.
Yes, true. But first of all, how long did you really have? Were you in Maryland when you had a full house where you could do that, and you were in an apartment? Second of all, let's bring up the
I'm
beer
in
question.
an apartment right now, and I have a spot for aging beers.
Yes, I'm just saying his was a closet, so maybe not
So
the
is
ideal.
mine.
Maybe not the ideal temperature. Hey, maybe she's not going into the closet so much.
My house had a second fridge, and that's where I aged my beer.
Good man. So, I would like to bring up the bigger question in the room is why a pumpkin? But I won't do that.
pumpkin.
Fine, I've got an aged rum barrel you can have that's been sitting on my shelf with a warlock you can also have.
Quick note while
I
we're
will
on the
split
topic of
those with
pumpkin. I had
Not the Warlock, the rum barrel.
I had a 2018 pumpkin. It's on tap at Ebenezer Ale House, another West Seneca establishment, and it was fantastic.
I just opened a bottle of one myself.
I'm excited about this year's pumpkin.
Oh, God.
You know,
I
I
can't get
like to
behind
try
them.
it. I like to try it every year, mostly to see how things change year to year.
They've
And
changed
There's
drastically to me.
been a couple of times that I'm just like, okay, I kind of like this year's, and then I drink it, and then I'll try it the next year. I'm like, okay, not a big fan. I'll try it again.
I think it's because
then be
I
like,
don't.
all right, yeah, still
I'm not a.
done for the year.
I'm not a. I don't want to say I'm not a big fan of fall beers because I certain ones I am if they hit the mark. The problem,
Mr. I Love Copper Legend.
yes. The problem is I don't. When you say that, I don't consider it a fall beer.
It's an Oktoberfest.
It's a fall beer.
It's. But what did we talk about date wise? I don't consider when we are talking about strict season. Okay, I get what you're saying. But when we are talking about something like a pumpkin, I'm not considering it fall because fall doesn't have to shove cinnamon, nutmeg, every cinnamon stick up my nose to get me that flavor. And I find a lot of beers will do that. Not to say that they're bad. If you like them, hey, go for it, drink them. And I think we're talking 3-4 years ago, I talked to Alex about what was our favorite pumpkin beer. There's no pumpkin beer. Let's clarify this. I have not
There's a couple. There's a couple
pumpkin
that
beer or a
actually
pumpkin
use-
pie beer.
Well, there's a bunch that use pumpkin in them.
Yes, but have you...
My favorite uses
So-
pumpkin in it.
Okay, you can use pumpkin in it, but what accentuates those flavors? It's a big difference because pumpkin doesn't taste like much unless you caramelize the sugar, which is what everybody loves, and then you add spices, and you get this heavier sense out of it. Enjoy it.
I actually quite like pumpkin or pumpkin.
That was the one I was going to bring up
Dogfish Head?
because
Yeah.
I knew he liked
That's
it.
my favorite.
That is
Oh,
his
okay.
favorite.
That's my favorite.
That's
I was
what
going to
going
say
for.
that when he was talking. Yeah.
So I'm not against them, but it doesn't do anything for me as it
So
would a copper
part of
lemon.
it is I love cinnamon. the flavor.
Same.
A, just I enjoy the flavor. B, I like that cinnamon was the way that spice tasted from Dune. So that always tickles my nerd fancy.
Spice must flow. Fucking beep! That was a great line, you fucking stupid beep.
Dan's throwing chairs.
You
now.
can just say the line again.
It's over.
No,
Keep going.
you know I edit this, right?
My time has passed. Fucking beep.
I agree, though.
Yeah, I know I will.
I enjoy cinnamon. I enjoy nutmeg and allspice. I enjoy all those spices, which is one reason why when someone actually uses pumpkin in a pumpkin beer, it makes me happy and I actually enjoy the beer more. But, like, most places don't. They put the spices in, they don't bother with the pumpkin because they're like, hey, people just think about the spices and all of a sudden, oh, pumpkin hits them. And it says pumpkin on the label, so...
I don't taste pumpkin when I drink pumpkin.
There might not be any pumpkin in it.
And I don't know if there is.
Right, I don't know if there is either.
So now we need to get Southern Tier on here, and they need to answer my questions.
Please, they are one of my favorite breweries.
Yes, I like them.
20
I've
minutes
had
from
great
my in-laws.
conversations with them. I've been to great festivals. Their brewery is amazing. I even like their distillery that's coming up. Some of their liquor is really good.
I served, or not I personally, but we served 2X IPA at our wedding, and that was personally the reason why I think
And
so
you
many
had
of my
pumpkin
family
on
had a
our
great
table.
time. Yes, and the head table had pumpkin at the table.
And I drank a lot of them.
What's the ABV on 2X IPA?
High enough that people
That's gotta
don't
be above
remember.
7.
Like
It's over 7.
my two brothers-in-law had quite the time wrestling in my in-laws' backyard.
Yay!
By the way, my in-laws don't drink, so they were quite appalled by the drunken wrestling match that was happening.
Sure.
But it was just it's solid beer. I think when we were to flash back to a conversation we had earlier in this pod about like the early beers we had. Southern Tier to me is when shout out to my very first roommate Kyle back in Fredonia. Whenever there was a Sabres game on. After we hit 21, he could go to Walmart and buy it. He'd buy a 12-pack of the Southern Tier variety pack, throw it in my fridge, and we'd watch the game at my apartment, and it was awesome. And I tasted some beers that I liked that were craft beers, but that's where I really learned to appreciate Finn and Matt's and their IPA.
Good Finn
and
Matt's.
yeah, like there's just that really got me into craft beer was those Southern Tier variety
8.2.
packs. So if Southern Tier wants to get on the show or have us come down for a visit, because I have been there more often than been to any other brewery besides maybe Monocacy in Maryland. So I love that place.
Chris and I have been down there before, and it was when the podcast first started out, and we were literally just getting kind of our recognition out there, and this is just when they hit the merger with Victory.
Yep.
I think it was.
Great
and,
idea.
I was
The trip that we did?
No,
we went
this
to a
was when they
festival.
were doing. I think it's like a Consumer Appreciation Day festival thing. The trip we did was later.
Gotcha.
And we got to go down there, and it was a good time. And then, yeah, you're right. We did a second trip, and we were with a larger group, but that was literally enjoyment, and there's no stories behind that. So, yeah. But,
Some stories behind that one.
I think it's the
None on air, though.
yeah.
it's the variety of good tasting beers. They have a dessert, the Blackwater series, for example.
Yeah.
The creme brulee beer,
Oh.
which I can't have more than the one bomber of, but it's
What?
so
Wait,
good
wait,
when you
I
have
wanna-
can have about
I-
a glass of it.
Yeah,
Yes,
I want to
I'd
go
do it.
back to
It's
that.
a little too sweet
Tim
for me.
just
but
said he can't have more than
Okay.
one bomber of 22 ounces is his cutoff point.
married man, I split the bomber. Always happens. Or their chocolate beer is really good. The chocolat.
The chocolate.
It's
I want
definitely
a bottle
good
of that because I got
on
an
it
aged
in and
bottle
of
sitting on my
itself.
shelf.
Yeah.
that chocolat, I reduce it down to about half. Add a little bit of Hershey's chocolate syrup to it and some fresh raspberries, and then let that simmer a little bit. Pour it over vanilla ice cream. Oh my god!
The
so
good.
the new name of the beer at that point is Decadent as Fuck.
Yeah, jeez. Trying to think of other ones. Citrus peel, three citrus peel out
Yeah,
is also
I
very
do
good.
really like that one too.
The first Goza
That
I
is-
ever
that
enjoyed.
is
Or
some
if you
good
wanted to find a
flavors.
real
Yeah.
chocolate beer, just find Chocolate Manifesto by Flying Monkey.
Well,
Well, that's
try
true.
and find that. the first Goza I ever enjoyed was their cherry Goza, which was Delicious.
Actually, that reminds me.
at consumer.
That reminds me of New York Beer Project has a watermelon ghost.
Oh yeah. Oh, I don't know if I tried that.
It is really good. It's like fresh watermelon up front, and then it finishes with this like the like watermelon, like the end, the rind. It gets that like bitterness and a little bit of tartness in there, and oh my god, it's so good.
I'm actually not a big fan of watermelon in and of itself, but there's a few, probably more than a few beers that have watermelon flavor, and I'm all on board with those.
Yeah.
Those are pretty solid.
Anderson Valley's briny melon. I just had that.
Yeah,
that was really good. Yeah.
You know, I think it's an easy fruit to use in beer because you can liquefy it so easily, and it settles out, so you can get a lot of that just liquid into the beer.
I can't eat it.
Really?
I'm a big texture person on food, so watermelon. And ironically, as much as I love citrusy, juicy, juice bomb IPAs, I can't eat oranges, pineapple.
Really?
Anything grapefruit, anything citrusy. I can't eat the texture of those fruits. Just makes me want to gag. But the flavor, and even like I don't like strawberries. Strawberry and cherry. I don't eat either of those fruits. They're my favorite flavors of like candy and things. Not usually beers, but although
He goes for red candy.
I do, I do.
So through beer, you get to appreciate tastes that you wouldn't otherwise get to appreciate.
And and you can always tell when it comes out in the hops versus when a beer says, "Oh, it's a grapefruit IPA," and you're like, "You threw some grapefruit right at the end, didn't you?" That's a neat little trick you tried there. But I can tell you can tell a true, not to classify people here, but a true person that really appreciates beer can tell when it's been thrown in at the end of the brewing experience, or if it's been really brought out in those hop characteristics.
Right.
True.
Actually, riding on that, recently you had 2 beers that I brewed, and I believe you did successfully pick out the one that had an extract in it.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can tell, and they both were good. Not to toot your horn here, but I did prefer the one that
Toot
was
it all you want.
the pure strawberry, not the extract. Now that we're about close to the end here, I do think it is, as it always is, time to really appreciate the area, the innovation that we're seeing in these beers, from the New York Beer Project, Dude and the One, to the collaboration we're seeing between these breweries as true. Perfection sounds like too much, but it's almost a perfection of the art form that they can take products that we already like. We like New England IPAs. We like Kolsch's. Well, you guys do. I don't usually. And just make them awesome. And you know what? They're within an 8-minute walk of Chris's work. Or for the rest of us, they're
As
actually...
we like to say, they've got the touch. They've got the power.
They do. And I just, again, to reiterate what we said in the previous episode, a huge thank you. Excuse me. A thank you to these 4 breweries. New York Beer Project, we got Pressure Drop, we've got Old First Ward, and Buffalo Brewing Company. All of which providing us with great product to drink tonight. I hope they enjoyed our show. I really hope they keep putting out these awesome products that we will love drinking.
Tasty libations.
Yes.
That keep me coming back from our over and over again because it's getting so much better.
Cheers to that.
And
Twice in a row, Dan has had one hell of a time at the brewery, and then came and had one hell of a time on the
I'm
show.
sorry. Once again, I cannot take away anything from anybody who has a passion for what it is they do. Whether I like it or not, so far I am proud of what Buffalo has to offer.
Perfect. Thanks, Tim, and thanks to all those breweries for making such delicious brews for
You guys
us.
were absolutely fantastic. Had a
Agreed.
great time talking to all of you.
So again, just to recap, this is episode 2 in our series focused on Buffalo called Buffalo in a Glass. We are going to do a 3rd episode as well.
Fuck yeah, we are!
So look out for that, and definitely let us know in the comments anything specific you want us to taste,
Roast
look
us.
If you want to roast us, Dan's really looking for a
I
trolls
will
online,
come at
so-
you, and I'm looking 100% forward to it. And it's just out of good fun because
You know,
that's the kind of guy
nobody
I am.
has done it yet, and I think they're scared of him.
Oh, that's a possibility.
Bring it!
Give me a fight.
We take constructive criticism and take it into account. Seriously.
I'm literally punching the air right now.
And fight back.
So if you want to leave a comment just ripping on Dan, he's ready
Tell
for
me I
it.
suck.
Or, on a different note, if there's a brewery we haven't talked about in the area and you're
Yes.
like, hey, what about them? Please comment on any of our feeds on Instagram, Facebook, what have you, and we
Twitter.
would love to go
we
check
have
them
not
out.
used Twitter in a while.
Yeah.
And you know what?
We use Twitter.
If
We
you
do.
if you are a part of a brewery and we haven't talked about your beer, get a hold of us and we will come to you and talk
We
with
will
you about
gladly,
your beer.
willingly come to
Absolutely,
you.
yeah.
Excellent. We're looking forward to episode 3 of Buffalo in a Glass. Cheers.
It's
Cheers.
IAPA, motherfuckers.
Sláinte.